Thank you, Hanu, for that kind introduction. I probably need to tell my daughter, who thinks I'm full of shit, and use the word integration too much. So I think but very happy to be here. I mean, there's so many people in the audience that I feel like have been mentors and people I've learned from. So thanks for providing that opportunity. So Hanu asked me to talk about kind of the next 10 years in construction technology. And I was, like I usually do, reached out to a bunch of people and got a lot of input in, hey, what should I talk about? Because everything that you're going to probably see is something that, has come from many people in the audience here. So just, let me go through it and then we can maybe talk about it. For some reason. So a little bit, Hanu already introduced myself, but I grew up in a construction family. So construction is what I love. I was telling some folks out here why I love construction is when you go out to these projects and the amazing things people do, I think, and what they have to bring together. It's just fascinating. And then one of the things I'm really excited about kind of for future is sort of working with Kaushal and others to bring innovation through our venture team. And I went through this. So the way I'm going to go through this is really first focus on what future are we trying to prepare for, like what opportunities and challenges exist for us in the AEC industry. And then talk about how CT can address that. And then my sort of probably a controversial list of predictions for the future, which I'd love to get your feedback on. So opportunities and challenges. I mean, we are a low margin industry. If we achieved 2.5%, we think we did well. When I talk to my friends in tech, they are like, how do you guys survive? I'm like, we have tried to survive for a long time with that. There's a lot of people that, would probably kill for this every year. And when I look at sort of the opportunities and challenges, I know this is a very busy slide, and I'm not going to talk about every one of these things. I have a whole white paper behind this if somebody wants to go through this to know what each of these things mean. But I'm going to focus on maybe these things that are in the solid blue. Starting all the way on this side, I feel like we are entering this era of a permanent lack of skilled labor workforce. I mean, we talk about labor as like a fungible resource. I think we just need to wake up to the reality that it's not going to be the case. I think projects are becoming mega projects. They are becoming more remote. And it's just not possible for us to just keep building the workforce at the level that construction is happening in the US. I think tariffs were announced yesterday, so supply chain is going to get critical. We don't have to be geniuses to be thinking about that. I think the project delivery approaches that incorporate sort of the design expertise at the right time in the process, I think is going to be critical. Not just critical, I just don't think that you can survive without it over the next 10 years. We talk about the focus on life cycle cost versus just the first cost. I mean, I deal with a lot of customers who are institutional owners who are now really interested in what can we get out of the facilities, not just sort of while we are building it, but also throughout sort of the life cycle. I think one of the things, my background is all BIM VDC, and the adoption of sort of VDC is still something that I feel, is gotten better. I think a lot of examples out here, a lot of people involved in it, but I still think can sort of get to that next level. One of the things we talk about is the prefab approaches, and it's tied to the skilled labor workforce. But I do want to talk about like what really prevents us from doing prefab is not the traditional thing sort of we think about, but a lot of different type of thinking that we really need to incorporate, and I'll maybe discuss that a little bit. And then I've been hearing about data for a long time, and I feel like this next 10 years, we are really going to look at data as an asset that not only is going to help you learn, but also something that you can monetize potentially as construction companies, as design companies. So there's a lot that I said there. So let me go and sort of talk about the role of construction technology. So we have all lived with this notion that construction technology can be a key differentiator in delivering predictable outcomes. This slide is something that many people here probably would recognize because they were part of this project. This was a UCSF Mission Bay project that I was part of. And this project finished back like 15 years ago, now. And I still show this because when I go and sort of talk to people, there's like, how did you guys bring all these things together? Starting from really everything that was modeled, from a quarter-inch scale to the big room to people working together to all these transparent process metrics and all that. So we know, like this is not like the, something that I'm telling anyone here on how to do. So why is it so hard for us to replicate this? If you ask me, like we did this 15 years ago, is every project at DPR doing this today? No. And so there's something that we need to think about differently over the next 10 years if we really need to accomplish this. This project was a $1.5 billion project that finished, 15 days ahead of time, where the doctors were basically thinking, okay, what are we going to do because we got this sooner? Because they always expected we were going to get it 6 months later. So again, stuff that we already know, how to do. So what I said is like, thinking about all that, those opportunities and challenges, sort of what are my predictions for the future? So I did this top 10 list. Actually, I created like top 25, and somebody wants 25, I can give them to you. But this is just what would be interesting to talk with the audience here, because you guys live this every day. So I'm going to get into the predictions. So, my favorite topic, VDC. I feel like VDC has to be the predominant project delivery approach in the future. There's no doubt that I have that, we have there's results that we have proven over and over and over again. And there's no way that I see complex projects in the future getting done without, this is just the model, but that diagram that I was showing you, bringing people together early, getting all of these things done. This has to be this way. And the other thing I would say is that it has to be used across the project life cycle. I see VDC, whenever somebody talks about VDC, it's about coordination. But I think the overall life cycle is folks are just realizing the value in it. I see Bentley, Autodesk, Trimble out there. There's a lot of stuff that is being enabled by VDC. You talk about robotics, or you talk about the, digital twin platforms or other things. All of those things are going to get happen. The other thing that I would say is something like this. So I'll just play this. But we do things where, creating a 4D model, you create a schedule, then you connect your schedule to objects, and you animate that and do that. We are not utilizing data that's in the model to be able to do this. So this is an example of something where you're taking a BIM, which is really detailed out, LOD 400, LOD 500, whatever you want to call it. But then you're utilizing the knowledge that you have on production numbers, on quantities, on how you want to develop your pour sequences, things like that, and then develop a sequence that you are describing very visually in the model, so then you can spit out the schedule, which is more accurate, and then you can obviously make the adjustments, and that's how you create the model. So to me, it's flipping the script on what VDC really means. It's really utilizing the eye in the building information models, and really utilizing the knowledge that you have gained over the years to be able to do something like this. And I feel like this is going to sort of take us to that sort of next level. So that's my prediction number one. And we'll all have jobs. I will, at least. So I think this is my other favorite topic. GPLA is here. One of my really good mentors, friends, is Greg Luth, whose name GPLA's company is named after him. And they are a structural engineering firm that we work with now. It's part of our family of companies, and Josh and Sean and Matt are part of this. But one of the things we used to talk about all the time is why have designers ceded their responsibility of creating detailed models, and therefore created this, shop drawing process, which adds unnecessary stuff to, delays and all this stuff to, and responsibilities to, in this process. And I feel like with the way the tools have gone, I mean, it's easy to produce, using Tekla and using all the tools that you can buy here, really detailed, model that you can use to make something buildable. I think this notion that there's conceptual design and then it sort of gets refined and you do this and that, I think we have to fundamentally maybe rethink that versus, now with the prefab approaches, people are thinking components. How do you get components incorporated into it, modules incorporated into design? How do you think of opportunities from the very get-go? And I feel like that, contractor, designer, the field working together to produce something that enables really faster construction is what's going to matter. And I think we should all strive to work with people to say shop drawings, we are going to eliminate those. And I think my sense is that also enhances the stature of the design teams that can become those folks that provide really the support that is needed and not spend all the money that you spend otherwise in the contract administration phase of the project. So I might be foolish saying this, but I'm very passionate about this topic. I think it would be something, if it happens, if we all start talking about this, I think we'll get there. And what does that mean? It means doing stuff like this. It means giving people instructions that they can work with, that they don't have to do rework all the time and things like that. And I feel like it enhances designers, it enhances the field, and it's a win-win from a lot of different perspectives. Okay, number 3, this perpetual lack of skilled labor workforce in the industry is going to force us to adopt prefab. And everybody that I talk to, I mean, prefab as a business has been a failure everywhere you look. I think there's investors here, there's probably people who have tried prefab we have tried prefab, everybody else here has probably tried prefab. So why is that not successful? I feel like we are looking at prefab from the construction lens. We are trying to force something into it rather than thinking about it in a very fundamentally different approach. I think there's this whole notion of design for manufacturability and assembly. And you have to think about things like that, where can you incorporate modules directly into it? And why is this important? I talked about labor, and I think if somebody wants to get something done at the pace at which they want to get done, you're going to have to provide better working conditions for workers in factories. You're going to have to reduce or deal with the reduced amount of labor that you're going to find in all these remote places and things like that. So to me, this is not a choice. This is something that we are going to have to adopt forcibly, and this lack of skilled labor workforce, I feel, is going to make it happen. So, I know people ask me a lot of time, like, yeah, but we have to keep factory busy, we have to do this, we have to do that. And I don't know how that will all evolve. I think one of the philosophical discussions I keep having is it really investing in all these automated factories, or is it investing in sort of smaller macro factories that are closer to, let's say, job sites where we are doing stuff like this? But we are going to have to figure out this as a condition that I think we are going to all have to deal with the reduced labor workforce. And this is an example, I think, for a project. I think some of you guys visited a project like this here, but where you incorporated it in the design, this bathroom part, you were able to build something that was a special sort of lifting device. You rolled something out and you installed this. Now think about the 17 activities you needed to coordinate on your project versus the install and the connect, and how much of a reduced labor on site you could get doing this kind of stuff. So I feel like I think this is something we have to figure out over the next 5-10 years. It is going to happen more and more, and I think owners are going to have to pay for this. I think compared to what they do now, which is compared to the stick build approach. I think part of the reason I'm doing my job is because I hated doing the same things over and over. And and I feel like that's the immediate opportunity for AI. And it's sort of this automating the tedious process. Somebody sent me this chart, and I was amazed at this. They said this, and the title of this article was, "This is the most important graph that you will see right now." And this shows the adoption of, when ChatGPT came along, 2 years ago in November. Within a month, they had more than, I think this is 100 million users, and how fast that technology has taken on. And it's created a huge opportunity for us. I mean, I was just talking with the Doxel guys out there about the data centers we are building here in Texas. I mean, we could be essentially building data centers for the next 5 years and still not have any capacity to do anything else. And it's happening because of things like this, where what used to be a 9 kilowatt rack is now a 120 kilowatt rack with liquid cooling going to it. And it's creating opportunity for all of us in the construction industry from a building perspective, but it's also creating opportunity for us to look at our business model. I think if 30 to 40% of the white collar work is predicted to be automated through AI, that's a big deal. I think we used to basically, talk about, this is not impacting it. I have a ton of friends in the software building business, and they are saying like, yeah, I mean, this is actually true for the software developers. 30 to 40% code, they are just, getting it from Copilot for GitHub or something like that. All these other tools that are available. So this is not too far for things like finance and accounting, or project controls, or HR, or things like that. So what does that mean? I mean, I think to me, it's agents that are gonna automate the tedious tasks. I think you don't, expectation for me when I joined as a PE was I was the first one in and last one out, and do all these posting on drawings, or do this or do that. And I feel like the agents are going to sort of take care of that. So friends at Trunk Tools shared this with me. They're building agents like these at the bottom that ingest all the data and then add the construction intelligence on top of, and then use them so that you can automate some of this tedious process. I think you guys have all heard of Document Crunch. We are piloting them, and this is on the contract review side, where you ingest like an owner contract. You look at analyzing the owner contracts for a bunch of things. And again, this is something that project engineers do today. They have to. And when you get busy, when you get behind, it gets really difficult to keep up with stuff that the contract says you have to do. So I think this is using technology that is available today to help our people lead better lives and create sort of better opportunities for them to stay on top of things. And I feel like this is going to continue to happen more and more over the next 4 or 5 years. And I think we have to adopt this. We have to make this available to our people so that I can attract, my daughter doesn't want to join construction. Why? Because she's seen me, do this, and probably use the word integration too much. But I think it's tedious. Why many of us have chosen to be in the technologies, because we think we can do things like this and gain more value and fulfillment out of our own sort of roles. And I think that we need to create that opportunity for people, the project engineers that work for us. I think friends from Doxel shared this with me yesterday. I mean, I think I used to spend a lot of time going out, taking pictures, creating reports, all of that. I feel like that's going to get automated. Like, I think it has to. I mean, there's no reason not to. I mean, there's enough of the BIM that we are doing right now. There's all these capture technologies that are out there right now where you can combine them and do this in a much more automated fashion. And that's going to happen over the next few years. So number 5, robotics. And I talk about this slightly differently. I think robotics is going to enable craft to reinvent themselves, differently. And I think we have a lot of these conversations within DPR. Is robots going to replace the craft? And I feel like this is actually, what I experienced when we started doing BIM initially. None of the craft people, on this UCSF project that I was part of, wanted to touch BIM, the first day we decided that we are going to detail this, we are going to model every piece of stud on this job. And they're like, you guys are crazy. This is never going to work. That was their reaction. And within 2 months, all that modeling was basically being done by the craft because they knew how to build something. They knew how the kings and corners worked. They knew how the backings worked. They knew what the field needed and all of that. And within 2 to 6 months, that changed. And most of our models are now being done by people who have built this in the field. And I feel like that same thing is going to happen with robots. I mean, we've adopted Dusty. I think you see one of the Dusty robots working out there. I feel like, Kaushal, we have like, 4 or 5 right now that are 5 that have been operational. But the guy that actually manages that fleet for us is someone that came from the field. He knows how to take the BIM model. He knows how to connect with this. He has trained other people. And I feel like we need to look at robotics from that perspective, is that it's allowing our craft to extend their skill set. It's something that's, I think, going to change the sort of the way they work. And there's Hilti that we have tried out. There's Canvas for the drywall, mud and sanding robot. A lot of these things are going to get more mainstream. I would say Dusty is probably more mainstream. These 2 others are emerging, will happen more. But I feel like I think this is going to keep increasing. And this is not for the faint of heart in terms of, and this is where I feel like, I mean, this group, like building transformations or just the, working with venture capitalists and industry, where we can collaborate, because, doing something like this as a individual company is extremely hard. It's expensive. I mean, we've tried to, we have a patent for Labart. We spent a couple $1 million building two essentially, prototypes. And then, when we started working with Dusty, it really took off to that next level. So I think we have to think about coming together to solve some of these things, which would be, pretty interesting. This next one is a little nuanced, and I'll dwell on this a little bit. So currently we compete as companies, DPR competing with Turner, competing with Mortensen and Swinnerton and others. And I feel like the era that we are entering with tariffs, with supply chain fragmentation, mega projects and all that, I think it's not going to be this competition between companies, but I feel like it's going to be a competition between supply chains. And what do I mean by that? We talked about skilled labor workforce being a challenge. So if you have a good supply of labor, if you have design that you manage, if you have access to supply chains and visibility to supply chains across your projects, that is going to be the skill set that owners are going to look for, and not others. And it's not competition between you as a company and somebody else as a company, but it's someone who can put the tools and processes together to manage supply chain more efficiently and transparently. So the example, I think this is an investment example, so I admit this is something we have invested in. So I want to talk about sort of combining these 2 or 3 things that we have, where you have AI that can help us, and many people have used Pipe, which is a tool from Autodesk to extract information from submittals. This is something we just rolled out across all our company much more strategically, because what we don't have currently is visibility of supply chain across projects. Of course, every project knows what they're going to get and all that. We want to get visibility across supply chain so we can figure out where is the demand, where can we negotiate pricing, can we do all that. And this is the first step for us to do that. And they are working on some of our largest projects on the data center side. And we have a big hope that this allows us to enable kind of that supply chain kind of a thinking within the company. And that's something that we are promoting quite a bit. I think this next one is the life cycle cost of buildings. I'm honestly, I don't know. I think maybe optimistic would be word that I would like to use, but I'm always amazed the discrepancy between the capital program and the operating program for an owner. And I mean, the amount of effort we are putting in to produce the BIMs and all this, and then you come to somebody that just like, give me a CD and get lost, sort of a thing, is just flabbergasting to me. And I hope that that changes over the next 10 years. So, I mean, this is not maybe a prediction as much as a hope, I would say, that I think people pay attention to it. I hope sustainability doesn't become kind of this political hot potato, important one day and not important the other day. And people really focus on this as something that is asset as a value and focus on it. And I'm starting to see that with the institutional owners, people who, who care about like, the drug manufacturers, the, data center operators, the healthcare operators, things like that. I mean, for them, their facilities, their everything. That's where they provide the value. And so we are trying to really, use the data we produce during the, construction process, bring all that together so we can do things like allow the owners to, operate and maintain and do this predictive maintenance and look at their facility performance in a much better way. Now, you'd say like, this is a no-brainer, so why doesn't everybody do it? I would love to talk about that. I don't know, because this is like one of those things that has just not been something that I've seen people pick up. So, okay, so I think I've been hearing about data as gold will really be true, and last night I was like, I need to use DALL-E to generate some graphics, so I generated this. That's pretty cool, like that Alibaba cave basically of data. And but I think companies are going to need to look at data much more strategically. So this is a statistic from I participated in this thing at Cambridge called the World Construction Leadership Forum. This is their analysis of multiple companies and what data they have. And I mean, you probably have something different in your companies depending on if you're a designer or not. But somehow we need to bring this together and reason about it and do something about it. And I mean, every company, AI company that I deal with, I probably spend more time looking at like 2 clauses. What are you going to do with our data? And what can we do with our data if you, go out of business or whatever? And I think this is going to get more and more important. I think we have to pay attention to this. And we also have to build the capability within our companies by getting folks like this who are not easy to come by. None of these guys want to work for a construction company. I've tried to do that. I've tried to hire them. And if you want to pay them Google level salaries, they'll come. But otherwise, they're not coming to you. So how do we get there? I think it's going to matter. And I think, but this is something that's important so that when you have people like that, when you look at your data and you've packaged it in a way, you can go from things like what this chart says, where you're reporting, but what you really want to get to is predictions. And I mean, the owners are interested in paying for your expertise and your wisdom. They're not interested in you reporting what went wrong. And this is the way to get there. And I think that's why it's really important that all the companies sort of look at this seriously. Number 9, and I think Kaushal will love this. I think we will see increased cooperation and investment in innovation. And I mean, we started W&D Ventures 8 years ago. We have invested in a bunch of startups ourselves. And if one of the things we have been doing over the last 4 months is reflecting on what have we learned by doing this. And the big thing that we talk about is, I think we should have partnered with many other companies before we did this, and tried to do that. And I feel like that is starting to emerge. There's a lot of the groups that are represented here that are doing this already. And again, this is an opportunity where I feel like we can come together and really support this. I think everybody's tired of these single companies that everybody wants to try out their solution. I think if we can do more of this as a community, I feel like I learn more from the folks in this room than just people, talking to people in my company. And I think if we can do more of this, I think that's a great thing. And I hope, I mean, again, this is not my prediction, but my hope that it happens over the next 10 years even more. And my last prediction is this. I think this has to happen. I mean, I think, and one of my favorite quotes is this Charlie Munger quote. I think you can go look at this snippet on YouTube. What he said is, to get what you want, you must deserve what you want. The world is not yet crazy enough place to reward a whole bunch of undeserving people. And the way I equate that to us is, I think we haven't deserved that seat at the table in the past, but I think many organizations are realizing that what every one of you do here is of value. And unless you have that seat at the table, which we deservingly have now, the companies are not gonna go to that next level. And we have been this low margin industry, and I feel like the power to unlock bigger value, go from this profession that is a cost plus profession to really more sort of a value added profession, the bigger dollars is going to actually happen through people in this room. So that's my hope. That's my hope for the future. And I think it really is like the best time to be alive in our industry. So thank you.
Thank you, Atul, for that. So we have some time for Q&A. So I don't know if we have any microphones out there we can pass out, but yeah, if you got a question for Atul, thank you for that great insight. That was really good. If you have a question, just put your hand up and we'll get the mic around.
Mic check. Hey, Atul, quick question for you. Right here.
Come on.
Really good points, and as you're kind of alluding to, maybe the industry and the way that we procure work and go about it needs to change. How is that going to happen? So like within the US, you have AIA contracts usually dominating. In Canada, we have, different contract body. But we've seen a lot of other contract types, IPD and design build and whatnot come up. What is it going to take really, in your opinion, to unlock the power of this technology so we can include prefab, BIM properly, incentivize the design teams, and so on?
Yeah, great question, Ahmad. I think what I would say is realizing that what you're doing is just not working, So every other way of doing things has produced results that you don't want. And I think especially in healthcare, any project above 100 million is realizing that, at least the owners we talk to. And they might, I think there's some genuine concern about kind of this integrated form of agreement per se, but people want that picture that I was showing you where, they want people to be working together, they want designers to come in early, they want to do BIM, all of that, irrespective of the contract type, they want to do. Now, I think this more alliance contracting in Canada or IFOA in the US and all that, I think that can happen customer by customer. We haven't seen an uptick in sort of the demand for that. There's only a few customers that do that. But even in the traditional contracting, it's starting to happen. I feel like the future, we are going to see more of the IPD, progressive design build, those types of contract rather than the traditional contract. And, maybe more value-driven contract also in the future. And again, the only way I can say it is, I've seen this happen with a couple of customers, and they've built multiple buildings, and they all went sideways, those projects, and they had to bite the bullet and sort of say, we'll do it this way. And then they have seen some success, and they have stuck to it. And unfortunately, our industry, sometimes you just have to experience shit before you change. And I think that is what's going to happen.
Hey, Atul, thank you so much. That was great. I think a lot of the folks in this room have been part of this VDC world that we've been trying to enable for the past 20 plus years now. What do you feel has been the impediments to getting that movement going faster so we all learn from that, maybe catalyze where we can go in the future? What's gonna be the driver of change there? You shared a lot of it, but I'd be interested in your reflection.
There are certain trends, Bob, that sort of I feel are hopeful from my perspective at least, that are going to force owners to be thinking differently right now. We talked about the lack of skilled labor workforce. That is real. It is real to a point where it's not, right now we need 200 people, 2 hours from here wanting to build data centers. We have 50, 150 of you, all of you can join DPR and go there right now. But that's every company's situation. And I feel like that is going to force people to sort of really think about this. I think the other impediment that I have seen is kind of this first cost mentality that we have talked about all the time. And I think, again, I feel that the difference between the institutional owners and the one-off builders. I mean, the institutional owners are not questioning the use of VDC or BIM or this, big room or all these things that I showed. I mean, they're doing that pretty routinely. The contract might be a different issue, but they're doing that routinely. And I mean, contractors like us, I mean, Hanu and I talk about this all the time. Whether an owner asks for it or not, we are doing it. Like, I think, we were probably one of the first BIM engineers in the company. Now there's like 600 people that do VDC and BIM. That's an expectation of a job of a project engineer. So things like that are gonna, I think, change. And I think, this group can probably influence it too.
So owners will wake up as it relates to building more complex things. I have just one quick follow-up. I think a lot of us related VDC to BIM, and I feel like that's an expanded view of what VDC is today. Could you touch on that factor and what you see might catalyze more leverage of VDC going forward?
Yeah, so I think the VDC framework, if you ask like the purists, which is like a Martin Fisher-like definition, it starts with client objectives, project objectives, utilization of, what you call sort of the integrated concurrent engineering, which is the use of BIM with the experts sitting right next to each other to produce something that is buildable to a level that you don't have to recreate anything, and then utilizing production planning methodologies like lean construction and others to then implement that in the field. That is what VDC means. So it's a much more expanded view of what typically is called BIM. And I think what we are trying to really promote is VDC, because it involves the expertise of people in this room. It expands the scope of what design teams can do. It brings in the builder in the process. And all of that needs to happen. And I think part of the disservice that maybe we have done to the industry is saying, just use BIM and you'll get all this stuff. No, you don't. We can produce more stupid BIM models in a few minutes than before when we had CAD. You have to have the right people, you have to have the designers involved in the process, and that's that expanded view of VDC from my perspective.
Hey, thanks for your presentation. I think construction is similar to a lot of other industries in that there's a challenge of getting really sophisticated models from white-collar workers down to executors in the field, right? That's common in a lot of industries, and manufacturing and car manufacturing, clothing, agriculture, right? The difference, I think, in construction is that you're doing that in really diverse locations, right? Many other industries, you have the benefit of doing it in one location. And so something I didn't see you talk about, but appears to be a major challenge to the industry is the mobilization of materials and that supply chain. I got excited when you started talking about supply chain, but then I didn't see anything mentioned about efficiently moving physical materials around the country. And I don't think we'll be getting away from kind of installing physical things on sites for a while. And so what is DPR doing to create efficiencies?
Yeah, so I think, so first of all, there's a few things we are doing. First is just recognizing that supply chain is going to be critical for us. We would basically procure everything on a project, just like many other GCs, how they do it usually. Didn't have a procurement or a supply chain group, didn't have a longer term visibility into what all these things that are happening in the world are going to do to you. Everyone sort of negotiating it on the project. Across projects, sort of like really demand planning across projects. One of the things that we are really excited about the program you're talking about is many of the things that I used to do as a project engineer on a project, like call supplier and say, hey, this product's not available, what can I substitute that with? Then work with the designer, get that shit in the process, get all that stuff done. We can learn from a lot of this stuff that we are doing, but right now there's no visibility. So where we are starting is, let's establish that as a practice right now. Let's offer it a level of importance that we have not offered it before. let's put tools and processes in place that is going to allow us to look at, not just a project by project sort of procurement. Let's invest in our own labor supply. Let's invest in design that is going to enable us to think kind of like a manufacturer and bring these component-based approaches in the system, and then make that sort of as a routine part of the process so that it becomes something that we sort of can practice. So that's what we are doing. I think what tends to happen, and I think something that's unique about construction from manufacturing is, every step of the way, somebody is checking that's not us. An inspector needs to come and see whether you put the right screws in it. Somebody else needs to come and say, you did like the right drywall or whatever. And manufacturing doesn't have that. Like, you don't go and say, did you put the right screw in my BMW? It just doesn't exist. Yeah, you might have some quality people in-house, but nobody sort of does that. But because, and the reason for that is, all those industries take responsibility for the performance of their asset. We don't. We are just like selling services. And I'm hoping that, through supply chain, through AI, all of these things, that we are going to move from sort of being this, arguing about do you need another BIM engineer to what value you are providing. But it needs to start with sort of pretty basic things that I talked about. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, this time. There's a microphone right behind you.
I agree with you 100%. Contractually, contracts will dictate the level of performance, I think, and the amount of integration that happens between partners on a project.
Yeah.
You have to work with another entity that you trust, that can do good work in the way that you work, right? So there's a level of consistency there. I guess, so actually I'm not really going to ask you a question, but I ask for maybe your thoughts on something, just because it's something I've been thinking about for the last 10, 15 years, is the notion that for the mega projects, and I see this a lot in the $1 to $6, $7 billion range, major infrastructure, healthcare, like you were saying, government buildings. What do you think about the notion that at some point, in order to guarantee a certified level of performance, let's call it, the contractor, not necessarily the supply chain, but the contractor, the trades, the design and the engineering become a single entity, and you think of it like, say, BMW building a car.
Yeah.
Their engineers and their designers, they're all part of the same vertical.
Yeah.
So the organization, so there's a couple phases to this, I guess. The first one is contractually it obligates you to work that way. Then the next stage is that DPR is design and construction and engineering. I'm just hypothetically.
Now we are headed there. We are headed there. That's exactly what I was trying to say is like, I think we have to, right now we are trying to do that on a project by project basis by bringing those people in and establishing strategic partnerships so that we can do that, even though contract, sort of like either like organizationally we don't, like let's say own a company or whatever. But I think that's why I was trying to say is like, I think in the future it's going to be this, competition between supply chains. Who has the best relationships? Who can sort of do this upstream and downstream thing a lot more efficiently? And it's not about, DPR competing with Swinerton or whatever, but it's, can DPR and the design team and their supply chain compete with, whoever is on the other side. So that is what I feel is going to happen. In terms of the performance that you said, predicted performance, I think we designers talk a lot about form, function, and behavior. You start with the behavior you want, and then you end up designing your form and your function. And I look at that whole notion of what has happened with the design profession, and this. Every architect I've talked to, will sort of caveat like, okay, we have designed this building, but we don't really guarantee the performance and the energy usage of this building or whatever else. That's up to the, this, and many things can happen. And we have looked at, even like buildings that are designed for Title 24 in California. I mean, they're using more energy than what that stipulation is. Forget about lead and all these other things. So to me, I think this, tools are getting mature. I think what we can do as models to predict performance before we build something, they're getting more mature. I think you have the knowledge sitting at the table that can actually do all those things in terms of usage and stuff like that. So I feel like it will get better, but I don't know at what point we are gonna get to sort of the phase you are describing, which is some entity takes responsibility for the ultimate performance. Like if you buy a car and it says 30 miles a gallon or whatever, and it only gives you 5. I mean, you're going to be pissed off. But that's what we do as an industry today. Just so you know.
Hi, great presentation. DPR is obviously an international organization. You have offices all over the world. You're managing international supply chains. What's your perspective on the impact of tariffs?
Yeah, Hanu has a U.S. and a Canadian lapel pin. I think all the board members here do. And we were just joking about this because they all just got announced yesterday. So I mean, if you think about the philosophical argument that is being made, which is by doing tariffs, companies are going to get forced to invest in the U.S. to bring their manufacturing back. And we have seen that trend for a while. I mean, after COVID, I think COVID really opened up, a lot of people's eyes that, there are some critical things like drugs and medical supplies and other things that you do need to have a lot of control over as a nation. And I think that is what is happening. That is what we see happening. I mean, Southeast especially, I mean, there's a hotbed of manufacturing activity right now. And so I hope that it does do that. I think the other side of it is, I mean, in the short term, things are going to get expensive. We know that. And I think, I mean, we have been educating our project people that, how do you negotiate this so that you're not taking that risk on? Like if suddenly something becomes, from whatever price to, 25, 30% more price, I mean, it's going to be a problem. That's not a risk that many contractors have sort of signed up for, if that happens. So I think how do you negotiate that is going to be critical. So risk management, I think, function within the contracting business is going to get critical. I mean, the other thing is it is going to create opportunity at a time where kind of all these other factors are also true, which is, lack of skilled labor workforce. So I'm sort of in a weird way hoping that this is actually creating an opportunity to do all these strategic things all of us want to do on prefab and everything else. It will get expensive for the owners to do it, but I think every CEO is probably thinking about how do I sort of, lock in things and stuff like that. I mean, we've been working with owners that are locking in supply chains, saying, we don't know where this generator is going to go, but we're buying 100 of them right now because we know we are going to have to build something. That sort of thinking is happening. This across the project thinking is also happening. So I don't know if I answered, enough of your question. Yeah.
All right. Well, I know we'd have to move on to the next topic, but let's give one more round of applause to Atul, really, for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you don't mind, I'm going to take a picture and a selfie and send it to my daughter because she, like I said, thinks I'm full of shit, so I'm going to. Thank you.
Thank you, Atul. Really appreciate that.